and let us all do we can to build a better future.
We here at Heartlands Media believe that third parties should have a voice. We here at Heartlands Media believe that there should be independent candidates. Now, I don't care whether you were green or libertarian, independent, doesn't matter your political affiliation, as long as you're trying to do some good and break away from the two-party system. But as we have reported on this show, the Democratic Party and Republican Party establishment leaders will do everything they can to silence third-party votes, no matter what office it is. And I'm proud to introduce Matthew Ho. He is running for U.S. Senate in the state of North Carolina. He is a former United States Marine like myself. So Marine to Marine, Matthew, I'm very glad to have you on my show. And as I tell all my guests, be unapologetic, don't hold anything back. And as a Marine, I'm expecting you to lay down the truth about what the hell is happening to your campaign and why the Democratic Party and Republican Party actually found a way to work together and silence your voice. Take it away.
Hey, thanks, Kit. I appreciate being here, man. So in order to get on the ballot here in North Carolina, and again, I'm running as a Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. In order to get on the ballot in North Carolina, we had to have the party recognized, the Green Party recognized. And so we needed 13,865 verified signatures. We collected more than 22,500 signatures. And of that, almost 16,000 were verified, 15,953. So we exceeded the threshold by almost 2,100. And for people who are not familiar with petitioning, you're always going to have signatures that don't count. Rule of thumb basically is every 4 you collect, only 3 are going to count. That's the way it works, not just here in North Carolina, but across the entire country. We met all our deadlines. We did everything procedurally correct. We turned in our certified signatures. The county boards the county's board of elections are the ones that certify the signature or verify the signatures. We turned in those signatures to be certified by the State Board of Elections on June 1st. And it's important to understand that we had a July 1st deadline to be certified by. And not only did the State Board of Elections have to certify us by that date, but after we were certified, we needed to hold a nominating convention. We had to have our folks go and register as Greens at the county boards of elections. And then our candidates had to go and file for office. So it was a bunch of things to do even after we were certified. So this just goes to show, I'm saying that just to illustrate that the bad faith was right off the bat here by the State Board of Elections because they refused to hold a certification hearing until June 30th, giving us less than 24 hours to get all those other things done. But we turn in our almost 16,000 verified signatures, and the State Board of Elections points to 200 irregularities among signatures that were not part of those 16,000 verified signatures, but of signatures that have been not validated by the counties. And over 30 days, and we cooperated with them, they looked and they tried to find evidence of organized fraud and found none. Nothing was brought to our attention that would disqualify us. And so at the certification hearing on June 30th, again, one day before the deadline, after they'd had our signatures for 30 days, basically the State Board of Elections, the Democrats on the State Board of Elections said, there are these 200 signatures we've been concerned about. There could be more irregularities out there. And because there could be more, we need more time to investigate. But because tomorrow's the deadline, we don't have that time. So we're not going to vote to certify you. And that was it. They didn't certify us. And when our attorney tried to ask, does any of your concern about other signatures have anything to do with our, almost 16,000 verified signatures? The State Board of Elections chairman refused to answer. And when our attorney tried to follow up, the State Board of Elections chairman shouted him down and then muted him. That was the extent of our due process. And in a brazenly partisan manner, the State Board of Elections voted 3 Democrats to 2 Republicans not to certify us. And now we're in the process of fighting all that.
So essentially, what has happened to your campaign? Because right now, I don't think we've really seen something this prolific in such a long time, to where you see the Democratic Party and Republican Party in North Carolina lifting up Mount Olympus to silence someone from the Green Party. Now you're running for the U.S. Senate seat, so that's obviously it's a big deal. But what I want to know is when you effectively got your nomination for the Green Party, because on your campaign website and everything else, you are the Green Party nominee for U.S. Senate for this election cycle in North Carolina.
Right.
There had to have been some kind of buildup or some kind of warning. I mean, when you were knocking on doors and doing phone calls for people, or at least doing phone banking, when your team members were doing phone banking, to see if people support you or register as a Green Party. I mean, was there any kind of indication that there was this kind of warning sign, or did this come out of left field? And this is something that's probably for the first time in a long time very real about how we're seeing third party voices being silenced.
We were expecting this. We were expecting to have to undergo challenges, make sure all our stuff was the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. We were expecting that because that happens all the time. We were not expecting the brazenness, the complete display of the arrogance of power that's existing here. One of the things that took us by surprise was how quickly the National Democratic Party got involved. Again, we knew the Democrats would do everything can to oppose us, that the Republicans would be doing their own things too, because they don't want to see third parties or independent candidates or grassroots campaigns prosper. But we were surprised at how quickly the National Democratic Party got involved, specifically the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Mark Elias law firm, the Elias Law Group. If people are not familiar with Mark Elias, he is arguably the most prominent Democratic attorney in the United States. Go and Google him, look up his Wikipedia profile. You'll see what I mean by he is arguably the most important Democratic attorney in the country. And they came down here right away to fight us. There's no one in their bullpen past Elias. So we are in a truly David versus Goliath situation here. We expected it, but this full force and having to fight both the State Board of Elections and the Democratic Party machine at the same time, we were not expecting that. We figured it'd be kind of more layered, one at a time. But this is what the fight we have. It's a true David and Goliath type of thing. And the reason, Kit, that they are so upset, the reason they are so threatened, I believe is twofold. It's not because of me or because of the Green Party or anything like that. It's because our folks went out there, and more than 95% of our effort was done by campaign members and party members and socialists and independents and leftists, people who believe in our movement. They went out there and they were met with just a wave of enthusiasm for people willing to sign our petitions, because these are folks who are dismayed, they're disquieted, they're upset, they're suffering because of the current two-party system. So the enthusiasm we met with that was out there for what we are doing was very apparent. And that scares and threatens the two-party system. The other side of that then is they do not want to have a candidate or a party or a choice on the ballot that represents working families, especially the interests of working families. Hasn't been one on the ballot down here in North Carolina in a very, very long time. And talking about someone who's going to be on the ballot arguing for single-payer health care, affordable housing, livable wages, action on the climate, ending the war on drugs, etc. Those are all things that very much threaten the profits of the corporations and the banks that support both the Democrats and Republicans. And that's why it's so anathema, this idea that there would be someone on the ballot who represents those issues and by extension, that constituency of working families, which really is both the working class and the middle class at this point. Because as we know, recent polling is showing us that almost 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And both the Democrats and Republicans want those people to be happy with the crumbs that they are given and not have any options for someone who's going to maybe do something for them.
Now, when we look at how you were denied to be recognized, and again, it was a 3-2 party line vote. As you said before, the North Carolina board denied you to being on the ballot. I think what a lot of my viewing audience wants to know is who's part of your coalition right now to really rectify and correct this record, or correct this horrible judgment that was done by the North Carolina State Board of Elections. Like, who do you have on your side? I know of course you have the Green Party. There's been members of the People Party, socialists, activists, independents. But even if, and correct me on this as well, but even the Libertarian Party in North Carolina has also gone on board with your team. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Libertarians have been absolutely great. They're horrified by it because they know they'll be next. Right. And I think that's why we're getting such support across the country from whether it's left, right, independent, non-aligned, however you want to describe them, voices, organizations, movements, because this is a real threat. There is nothing really fundamentally different from what the State Board of Elections said in their reasoning for denying us than what Rudy Giuliani and those crooks were saying in 2020 about why the elections should be overturned. Basically, they're saying is that there could be fraud. We don't have any evidence of it, but there could be. And because there could be, you can't allow this to go forward. I mean, by that standard, nothing will ever move forward. I mean, the absurdity of the two-party system and the way it controls so much, I think, is something we all agree upon. But it really shook me the other day when somebody said to me, someone overseas said to me, wait a minute, hang on. You're telling me that in the United States, in order for a political party to be on the ballot, it has to have the approval of the two other political parties? Like, how does that even make sense? Where's any kind of fairness or type of due process with that? You know, I mean, you're never going to have a system. I mean, so we've had a tremendous amount of support from people all across the political spectrum, because they know how important this is nationally, the precedent it sets. They understand the David and Goliath battle that we're in, but they also, too, recognize that they could be next in terms of going through what we're going through.
It's interesting to hear this story happening in North Carolina. I didn't know that it was that bad. We here at Heartlands Media, we've covered how the Illinois Green Party and Illinois Libertarian Party have to climb up so many mountains, cross so many rivers just to secure their ballot. We've done reports of where both the Illinois Green Party and Illinois Libertarian Party had to get 20,000, dare I say it, even 50,000 signatures just to secure that they could be on the ballot. But for our viewers and subscribers, I want you to talk about something that was very insidious. You talked about it even on Jimmy Dore's show as well. Again, shout out to Jimmy Dore, he's from Chicago. But you got a text message from a guy named Drew, and he gave you some options. What the hell happened? Because I'm looking at this tweet, and it's downright, to me, it's kind of frightening, and it just shows you just how insidious the Democrats truly are, including the Republican Party as well. And when I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans, I'm talking about the party. I'm not talking about voters.
Right, and I agree, and I want to make clear that I know if I was a conservative or our party was conservative, the Republicans would have been against us and the Democrats would have been supporting us. The whole partisan aspect of this is incredibly troubling, and it gets back to what we're arguing here. It proves our point. The two-party system is corrupt, it's harmful, and it's undemocratic, and that's why we need to end it and build something else. What happened, so I brought up Mark Elias and his law firm. So a few weeks ago, we get told that Elias is down here. And this is, again, parallel to what the State Board of Elections is doing, but they're working together, you know, and because the State Board of Elections gives our petition records to the Elias Law Group. You know, the excuse is that they're going to conduct checks to see the integrity of the petitioning process. So they're going to call on people and ask people if they signed or not. Well, they do that. They call people, they text them, they show up at people's homes, and what they say is, did you sign? Yes or no? And if you do say you signed, they then go into a whole political rant about how the Green Party helps Republicans, abortion is in the balance, you know, this will, you know, et cetera, trying to harass people, bully them, shame them into removing their name from the petition. It gets more egregious than this in the fact that they are representing themselves often as the Green Party. So sometimes they will say that we're with the Democratic Party. Other times they'll refuse to say who they're with. Other times they said that they were with the Green Party, calling to ask people to remove their names from our Green Party petition, which makes no sense, but that's what they did. The idea is to confuse people, harass them, bully them. They also at times, from what we understand, called and said they were with the State Board of Elections, probably trying to frighten people into removing their names from the signature, from the petition, right? So, you know, we saw this. We had members who were able to record them doing that, you know, and what it was a deliberately calculated effort to lie to petition signers in order to get them to remove their name from petition, in order to cast doubt onto our petition process, the integrity of it, to form the basis of the challenge against our certification. You know, and out of 16,000 verified signatures we collected, they only got about 140 people to say to remove their names. And with that, you have to ask how many of those 140 were lied to, when they, and thought that they were doing something they weren't doing or whatever. So, yeah, no, it is very insidious. You see that connection between the State Board of Elections and the Democratic Party, their most powerful law firm, working against the grassroots campaign. And, this is why I'm grateful to folks like you, Kit, for having me on to be able to talk about this. And I know this is what really outrages people, and it's wrong on so many levels. But just the blatant corruption involved here is quite revolting.
And in this text message that you were having, they're asking you to confirm many things. Asking you to vote on, would you be willing to have your name removed? And then this person, Drew, said, "Thank you for your time. Have a nice day." When you ask what organization is this, they reply back, "The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee."
Right. For whatever reason, that person said the Democrats. Other times they wouldn't answer. Like I said, other times they said they were with the Green Party. And we've heard that they were also staying with their state board of elections. They would show up at people's homes to ask them this, including people who had told them when they got the phone call or when they got the text message that I don't want my name removed from the petition. They would still show up at people's homes asking them to, or, berating them, harassing them, whatever, into trying to misleading them into trying to get them to remove their names.
Right. Now, I want to actually pull up just a couple of things because this story has gained a lot of attention. There's an article from Common Dreams. I want to make sure that's in the show notes that people can see it. I mean, it's repeating what you said, but this is how much attention it's getting. This article from Common Dreams can be found in our show notes, but also more importantly, there's another article too, where it's from, let me get this right. I believe it's the Carolina journalist, where it's a Green Party says Democrats use tricks to block them from the ballot. That's another Carolina journalist. Apologies for getting that name wrong. But this story is garnering a lot of attention. So I think in many ways what our viewers and subscribers want to know is what comes next. Because, again, I've never seen anything. The only time I think I've seen something this bad was in a previous election for the Virginia governor's race, where you had a member of the Liberation Party. She was forcibly kicked out in a governor's debate that was being held between Democrat and Republican candidates at the time, and they refused to acknowledge her. She protested. She raised her voice about how the fact that she's been denied to be on the ballot, and she was kicked out brutally. And now your campaign, you're seeing Democratic and Republican lawmakers. You're seeing within North Carolina doing everything they can to silence you. What are you prepared to do to actually, again, make sure that voters, your supporters, will be able to vote for you in this election for U.S. Senate in North Carolina?
Yeah, if they thought that we were just going to accept it and say, okay, we'll try again next year, they didn't know who they were getting involved with here. Not just me, but all the folks on my campaign, the folks in the North Carolina Green Party, all the independents that are supporting us. No, we're going to fight this. There are a number of legal and administrative avenues that we can pursue. We're moving on that right now. I can't get into details on it, unfortunately. But when we do act on it, which will be soon, we'll let people know. And the idea, though, Kit, is you have to understand the strategy here that they pursue. It's to delay us, so it gets to the point where the ballots are printed and it's been overcome by events. And too bad you're not going to get on this year. And as well as the other side of it is just exhaust us. Right? We're a grassroots campaign. I don't have dozens of people working for me. I don't have millions of dollars. So it's exhausting all our resources, all our money, all our time. This is what we do. We just deal with this issue and have been dealing with this we finished our petition process on May 17th. It's been more than 45 days now. And as one of the Republican board members of the State Board of Elections said very clearly, look, this is unfair. These guys have not been allowed to campaign for 45 days because we're holding up their certification. And so by doing that, it does. And it's purposeful, right? It's part of the strategy. Exhaust, demoralize, fragment, delay these third-party, grassroots, independent candidates and campaigns so that they're not effective. And that's part of it. So we expect that as we challenge this, there'll be legal action, and there'll be challenges from the Democrats and the Elias law firm that we'll have to answer. And this will be a fight that we want, though. This is a fight that we're not backing down from. It's a fight that we want. It's a good fight. It's a just fight. It's a fight that has meaning for us here in North Carolina, but throughout the country. And so we definitely need people's help. If people can support us, please go to MatthewHoferSenate.org, because we are, again, a David and Goliath fight. We're up against the Leviathan here, and we need assistance.
Now, I think also this message needs to be shared because what we see from the two-party establishment, people on social media with the coveted blue check marks, and corporate media, there's always that response of, if you vote third party, you're going to help out Democrats. If you vote third party, you're going to help out Republicans. This is such a significant race. We cannot have a third party voice. I want you to explain to our viewers the significance of a third party, why it's important. I don't care whether it's green, libertarian, socialist, People's Party, or non-affiliate. Why is it important for our democracy that we have a third party voice? Both you and I are Marines, believe in the idea of having democracy, a voice for the people. Why should there be a third party voice in America?
Yeah, I think the first answer is look at the evidence. Look at what the two-party system has done. I mean, just clear on that. Look at the deadly status quo. This has been a political system where both parties are arguably the parties of war and Wall Street, and that has brought ruin to tens of millions of people, both here and abroad. I mean, so just on the evidence of it, we should move on. We need to move on. We must move on to something else. The idea that somehow two parties, this simple binary red versus blue identity political system that we have, somehow encapsulates all the political choice that is out there, all the political philosophy, all the arguments for or against something. And so the idea is really quite absurd that only two choices are allowed when there are things as complex, things that are as deep and as broad, things as impactful as, housing, education, healthcare, the climate, so on. So the idea that somehow we don't have multiple parties, that we have to just choose A or B, and again, accept the crumbs that come to us, knowing full well the evidence of what has occurred already, knowing full well that the system is completely captured by money, and that anything that those who are not part of as George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it, we're just getting crumbs. And in order to change that, we have to force that change. And so this idea that somehow the system is going to reform itself without any pressure is really, really quite naive. And that's part of this, is get to the point where we're putting such stress on the political system as we see it, as we know it, that it must change. And that's one of the importance of running third party or independent, is to put that type of pressure on the system.
I think we still got a few more minutes for this interview. What do you hope your legacy for your campaign will be? It's quite clear that, again, very rarely do we see third parties make an impact. But we see the likes of when Ross Perot gave us the warning about what NAFTA was going to do.
Right.
Or how Ralph Nader was actually giving another voice for people to vote for. He was since then vilified, and George Bush Jr. has been rehabilitated with Ellen DeGeneres' dance on his on her show. But we've seen third parties constantly be vilified. But at the end, we see people waking up to the fact that third parties and third-party candidates, be they independent, green, libertarian, etc., turns out their message was right. What do you want your legacy for this campaign for U.S. Senate in North Carolina to be?
I think it's continuing that representation of those who are not represented otherwise, and inspiring people to build on that. I've been saying this for as long as since I started the campaign in January. One of the goals for me is to make sure that we have candidates running as Greens or as independents, or maybe if I inspire libertarians, that they're running in 2024. The idea that we've got a few candidates right now, 3 candidates right now for the Green Party in North Carolina, that in 2024 we're running 6 or 7 candidates, right? And then in 2026 we're running 10 or 12. I mean, this idea that we're building, but also too building the infrastructure. It's one thing to recruit candidates, but if they don't have an infrastructure to rely upon, to build on, they're not going to get very far. So it's bringing in people, making sure that we're building campaign managers, we're building treasurers, we're building all those other aspects of a campaign that are as important as the candidate is. So that, I hope, is the legacy, is that, certainly this issue with the state board of elections has presented us with something we weren't anticipating in terms of having this national prominence. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. But, how do we then utilize that to help continue to build a third-party movement that really represents working families, not just in terms of recruiting more candidates, but again, building that infrastructure that then ties into a larger movement, because I don't believe parties should exist for themselves. They should exist as part of a larger movement, just be one part of a larger body, that contains direct action, civil disobedience, labor organizing, communication, mutual and community aid, and other aspects of the body. Just one part is the political part. And that's the part we're working on right now. And if I can help build that so that we're more effective, we have a sound infrastructure, we have a greater infrastructure in 2024, 2026, I'll be happy with that.
Just two things. Faze, real quick, is that a question for our guests on Rockfin? Kind of. Let me go see it real quick. Let's see. We got Roger Meadows, good friend of the show. He tipped $2 on Rockfin. David ain't fight. He used a slingshot. Wolverine versus the Hulk is more fitting because you're scrappy. Strange how the GOP rather help the Democrats than help you to divide the vote with Dems. Also, if the GOP or if the Green Party is supposed to be left to the Democrats, shouldn't you fight to make sure a minimum wage monthly income can comfortably cover 30% of rent? Start at 40, not 15. Also, nationalizing health care and prescriptions, not Medicare for all, and negotiate lower drugs.
Yeah, absolutely, Kit. And Roger, thank you for that. Completely agree. This is one of the problems we have is everything is about the State Board of Elections. So the questions are all, when did you stop committing fraud, Matt? Like that type of thing. We're not getting to talk about healthcare and housing and other things. One of the things I believe, just to take the housing issue and the minimum wage issue, is that they are tied together, of course. And my belief is that we should have a minimum wage tied to local housing costs as annually adjusted. So this way you have a localized minimum wage that ties into the housing costs for a two-bedroom apartment, to rent a two-bedroom apartment in that area. And that is your basis for a minimum wage. I would prefer to go with what the Europeans do, in that housing should be 25% of your income, not like here in the U.S. where we say it's 30%. But even if it was 30%, build upon that to allow for a minimum wage that ensures that all people in the local community are able to afford to live where they work. Because that's the other thing, too, is we see way too many people who work and they have commutes that are burdensome, problematic, and, of course, now with the gas prices, insanely costly. If you're making $15 an hour, you're spending, half a day's pay, maybe 2/3 of a day's pay, maybe a full day's pay to fill up your car. If you're filling up your car every week, $150 your pay is going to gasoline? And that's the way a lot of people are living right now, because they have to live 45 minutes, an hour away from where they work because they can't afford to live where they work. So this idea of tying in your minimum wage to localized housing costs, I think, is one way to address both wage issues as well as housing issues. It serves as a form of rent control, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a final note, I want to pull up your campaign website. We actually have it in our show notes as well. That way, people can at least be able to find you online so that they can learn more about your campaign. Is there anything else you want to promote or make people aware of, especially with your ongoing fight in the state of North Carolina, so that you can get onto the ballot? I want to leave it up here for our viewers and subscribers to see. And that's you calling out the, again, North Carolina Board of Elections. I'll give you the final word. What do you want to share with our subscribers? Do you want to promote anything that's happening with your campaign, so that way they can contribute or help in whatever which way they can?
Yeah, if people can donate, because we are in this fight, we are in this good fight up against the Democratic Party and the state of North Carolina, please donate. We need your help. Please encourage others to donate. Go to MatthewHoferSant.org and please share our website with others. And again, encourage them to donate. We need your help. We need that money. I mean, I wish I could be more coy about it, but we need that type of help. The other thing I'll say is please support people like Kit and Hard Lens Media, because this is how we communicate. This is how our movement grows. This is how we move forward. Without platforms like this story doesn't get out. Other stories don't get out. I'm not going to get on CNN. So please help organizations like Hard Lens Media and Kit grow through sharing their work, donating, contributing however you can, because that to me is the linchpin of our movement, is this communications and media piece.
Well, Matthew, I wish you all the best in your campaign. We here at Hard Lens Media have covered a lot of third-party candidates on our show because we feel that everyone should have a voice. And from one Marine to another, Semper Fi, don't back down. We'll never die, and we got this fight. I know you got it too. And let's make sure that the whole world knows the story and how you're actually, again, continuing this fight so that people can actually have a right to vote not just fall in line with the two-party duopoly. So thank you so much, Matthew Ho. Again, to our
Kit.
viewers and subscribers, if you know anyone in the state of North Carolina that's not beholden to the two-party system or stuck voting Team Red or Team Blue, please consider sending them to Matthew Ho's way, so that way we can break the system. I think we got one more statement here, and then we'll end it here. Dominic tipped $2. Why don't the Greens run as Democrats or Republicans? Independentvoterparty.org. Also, Roger Meadows tipped $2. What you said and I said is exactly how the annual Out of Reach project report put together by the National Low Income Housing Coalition suggests what the minimum wage should be. Their new annual report is due this month. Stay tuned for it. All right.
Yeah.
And
I read that report every year. That's where that idea comes from. Roger's actually right. And why don't I run as a Democrat? It's because I'm not a Democrat, and I've never been a Democrat. If I don't believe in a two-party system, I shouldn't contribute to it. I should try and change it. So,
all right. Nonetheless, thank you so much. And again, to our viewers, if you know anyone in North Carolina that wants to help out a third-party candidate, send them to Matthew Ho's way so that way he can fight. With that being said, Matthew, thank you so much for being back on our show, and we would like to do a follow-up interview once this election's over to really find out, again, furthermore, what you had to go through with your campaign. I do hope that you are able to get on the ballot. Thank you so much for being on our show.
thank you, Kit. You have a good night.